Global Machino, realizing just transitions. Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP30 in Billy.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our DGB site event today in the German Climate Pavilion, From Vision into Practice, concrete examples for a just transition. A very welcome as well to everyone who is following us via the live stream. With today's site event, we want to take a close look what just transition really means. In the COP negotiations, there's a very large technical debate, especially within the Just Transition work program, where we made just little progress over the last years. That's why we want to make a deeper look into what the workers' perspective is for just transition, and to explore what the workers' needs are, what the challenge is for our colleagues on the ground, and what their needs are, and how trade unions develop strategies to face a transition in a fair and decent way. We will also take a closer look on the obstacles that exist and how we can tackle the current situation our colleagues are in, and how to tackle the ecological and social backlash we're seeing in many places. Before we begin, let me give you a short technical note. We have interpretation available. We will be mostly speaking English, but one colleague is speaking Spanish. So if you don't have any device, you get them in the entrance to follow the debate. With that said, I'm happy to hand over to my colleague Kathrin Schäfers from the German Embassy to give us a little welcome note. My name is Philipp Rohde. I'm the head of Division for Climate Policy at the GGB. Kathrin, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to our side event here at the German Pavilion. It's a pleasure to see you all here. I see many familiar faces, colleagues, partners, friends. It's great that you made it here. We gathered here in a space where the future of global climate policy is being negotiated, but where today, here in this room, we want to focus on something equally vital, turning vision into practice. The theme of this event, From Vision to Practice, captures the challenges before us. In recent years, COPs have set ambitious goals, but now we have reached a critical moment, because ambition is not really the missing piece we're seeing. What matters now is the question of how to operationalize, of how to make visions work in reality, in the systems, in the institutions, in communities, and especially in workplaces where change is actually happening right now. And that includes making a just transition that works for the people, for the workers, tangible. It cannot remain an abstract promise or a policy slogan. It must be something that the workers, their families, in their regions, at their workplaces, can see, feel, and trust. That means just processes, social protection, and real opportunities for decent jobs. Because acceptance of climate policy is not built through declarations or targets, but it's built through visible improvements in people's lives. Where transformation touches livelihoods, industries, and identities, People need to feel that they're part of it, that they're shaping the change, not just enduring it. Too often when people, when workers feel left behind or unheard, uncertainty turns into frustration. I mean, we all currently see that frustration feeding political polarization and a drift towards movements that reject it all, that rejects climate action, democracy, and social partnership. That's why it's so crucial to ground climate policy in social justice, dialogue, and especially participation. Here, the trade unions can play an indispensable role, and they are here to do so. They are the ones who understand how change affects the workers on the ground. They can negotiate the pathways that protect the jobs, that create new opportunities, and that also eventually build trust. They remind us that climate action will only succeed if it's also social action. To operationalize our climate goals, therefore, we must also operationalize just transition by building local capacity, empowering social dialogue, and aligning climate ambition with social justice and decent work. That is how we make transformation real, credible, and shared. So this side event here today is meant to contribute to exactly that same conversation. How do we bridge global commitments with the realities of regions, communities, and the shop floor? How can we make just transition something that people can truly recognize in their daily life? Not as a distant idea, but as a lived experience. So I look forward to this exchange today. I'm happy to be invited as part of the German Embassy in Brazil, and about hearing the very practical examples, the new ideas, and also the honest reflections about what works and what still needs to be changed. Because only by making the just transition tangible and inclusive can we move from vision to practice and ensure that climate policy becomes a policy for the people, for the workers, and with the workers. Thanks for having me. Obrigada.
Thank you, Kathrin, for this inspiring words. And I think you made the case pretty clear, and what we now want to discover with our panelists, how we can make it operational and concrete on the ground for workers, and what the trade union strategies are to conquer such huge challenges. And therefore, I would like to invite our colleagues, Juan Carlos from the trade union Sintracarbon with me. Warm welcome, Juan. I would like to welcome Margit Lindgren from the trade union Hello Norway. Great that you're here today with us. I would like to welcome Frederik Moch from the German Trade Union Confederation. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Rebecca Caron, the president of the Society of United Professionals, SUP. And a special applause for you, because we aware that that's your birthday, and we are very happy that you're here joining our panel on your birthday. That's great and lovely. Great that you're today with us. So, do you have the interpretation that's over here for Spanish? So, the channel 2 is English, channel 4 is Spanish, and channel 3 is German. And with that said, I would like to start with you, Juan. Great that you're here with us today. And I know that you're facing right now a very challenging time. You're facing a closure of a mine in Colombia. Does it work? Let me help you with that. No, but I think the translations, is it working? Does it work? Can you hear me? Yeah? Perfect. So, as I said, you're facing right now this closure of a mine in Colombia, and for trade unions, it's always a tough challenge, and nothing we really push forward. And maybe you can give us some insights into the context and the process, and how you as Sintracarbon try to shape the process in a fair way, and how you support workers during this transition, and how you prepare the conquer that is ahead of you.
Buenas tardes a todas y a todos los presentes.
Good afternoon to all of you. Sintracarbon has a huge challenge because the Glencore multinational has announced its closure in 2034. After announcing this closure, we, the workers, have spoken to them and have asked them to explain what the closure process is. Up to now, we have not received any response from them, but with the support of the DGB and another organization called SIPAME, we count on the support of the German government through a series of projects that seek to conduct an in-depth investigation of the challenges we face as workers. So first of all, we have a huge problem to ensure just transition. Also, women and environmental protection, those are big challenges for us as workers. Secondly, we need to do a study about the number of workers that are going to be affected, which is going to be the number of women that are working in the company, and what are going to be the job perspective of these workers. So we need to elaborate a profile, an analysis to know where the workers are going to go, if they want to continue working in mining, or if they want to start in a new business, or maybe they want to stop working.
Thanks, Juan. That's very important to hear the voices. And you said that you get support by other trade unions. Also, we as DGB try to help you going through this process, since we had also make similar experience in Germany. But I would like to know if you get also support by your local government, local authorities, and how you approach to them to really actively shape and to support workers in this transition process. Maybe you can say something on this issue as well.
The national government has gone through great efforts for the just transformation, but we still have challenges. And as a trade union, we think that this process is rather slow. So in the Cesar, Magdalena, and Guajira, we are working as trade unions. This would be around about 35,000 workers that would be affected by the closure. But then we are even more, because for every 25,000 we have tertiary workers. And these workers are outsourced workers. And of course, the people of Magdalena y Guajira have organized so that they can meet the needs of the workers. If the mines would be closed quickly. So basically, what we try to do is that we try to kick off a process to industrialize the region, and also so that the work which is no longer done in the mines could be replaced by something else. There are different perspectives, but something we do not have, something we lack, is time, and that is why we need the national government to step it up, to accelerate the processes, and we have to define where will funding come from, the funding of the transition, because the companies do not want to tackle this topic. The national government has not shown us exact figures as to where the money is supposed to come from for the process of transition, so that we will have to find out who is supposed to pay. And we ask the German government and thank the German government, because they have supported the process of this conversion to different works, and they were very generous in their offer. They said that they will put us into contact with German companies that would come into a region, and this would be very interesting, and we very much thank you for this possibility.
Yeah, thanks for this. Yeah, thanks for this insights, and I would come back to you in the next round, also talking about how your workers respond and how the mood and the workforce is. But before coming back to that, I would like to bring in Margit, who works for the Norwegian Trade Union and have been engaging with climate action and especially also climate adaptation for some time. And I know you have launched a project to strengthen trade union representatives on the ground in the green transition and also raise awareness of what's is ahead of us, but also why climate action is so important, especially on a company's level. And therefore, it would be good for us and also for our audience if you can give us some insights about this project and what experience you made reaching out to the colleagues on the ground.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
now you can hear me. Great. Thank you for this invitation. I want to start by explaining the context of which this project emerged, because 2 years ago we did a survey with our union representatives, around 1,000 union representatives across all sectors from all over Norway, about both their experience with extreme weather events related to climate and climate change, and their experiences with the green transition at the workplace. And this was a really important survey that we did, because what we found was that 1/3 of our union representatives had reported that they had experienced extreme weather events affecting their workplace in the past 2 years, which was the first time we got data on how prevalent this experience was within our membership. And we found that very few of our union representatives could identify what the green transition meant for them at their workplace. And so it became very clear that, first of all, we needed a strategy to address the challenges of more frequent and wilder extreme weather events at the workplace. But we also needed to address this issue of information at the workplace for our union representatives. And that is a trend that we've seen for a long time, that trade union representatives find the issue of the green transition very abstract, very political, and find it difficult to see themselves and their role in those kinds of discussions. That also, we've also seen that for the concept of just transition. And so, out of this, we decided to start a project, first of all, that would give our union representatives some very concrete tools and suggestions for how they could prepare their workplace for extreme weather events. And second of all, how they could orient themselves in the green transition. What exactly does the green transition mean for me, my members, and my workplace? And so we developed 9 different tools with very concrete suggestions. That is supposed to be a strategy for mobilizing and organizing at the workplace. And one of our affiliates at the moment has started a 3-year-long organizing project around these tools, where they travel from workplace to workplace to help trade union representatives figure out what does the green transition mean for their sector, their workplace, what kinds of demands can we bring to the table with the leadership, and actually work very concretely on ensuring a just transition for the workers that they represent. Yeah.
It's very interesting what you said, especially when it compared also to what Juan said, that we are facing also trade union losses in memberships in those affected sectors. And when you say that you link it also to mobilizing and organizing, that you might also get a push in density. And I would have 2 follow-up questions. The one is, do you see some concrete outcome, some benefit outcome due to your new approach on the company's level? And my second question, is it limited to several sectors, or is it a spread strategy to have a broader debate about the issue of climate action?
So it's a pretty new initiative and project. So it's difficult to say what exact types of outcomes we see yet, but we see a very different engagement with these issues from our membership. our membership shows very clearly that there is a massive lack of information, and they're really interested in understanding what this means for them and their members. So we really see that our members are interested in these discussions when it's done in this kind of way. And I think that's the biggest outcome for us at the moment, and that they also understand how to use the framework of collective bargaining agreements and the rights they already have for co-determination, for access to information, and how to use those rights to orient themselves and get a better understanding what this means for them. And I think it's a really interesting strategy as well, because then we as trade unions or the organizations aren't just coming to them and presenting solutions. We're giving them the role of actually fighting for justice for them and their members. And so they have to take an active role in this themselves. What was your second question?
Is it limited to one sector, or do you have a broader approach?
So the Trade Union Confederation made very broad tools, and then the idea is that all our affiliates, they can change and tweak these tools to fit their sectors. And so that's what we're seeing with one of our affiliates doing now. They're adapting these tools to their specific sectors. And so it's supposed to be used in that way.
All right. Yeah, I think what you said, especially enabling our colleagues to taking part in those debates, and especially within the workforce, I think it's very important, and that's really great what you're doing. And I think it's also for us on the debate elsewhere very valuable to get more insight on that. And with that said, I would like to bring Rebecca in. You are the president of the Society of United Professionals, which is organizing especially workers in the energy sector. And at the same time, due to Canada's close relationship to the United States, the countries experience a roller coaster, I would say, in emotions. My question would be how this affects your efforts in the energy transition on the one side, and also how you approach in energy transition in general in Canada. So what is your, from a trade union perspective, your stake in this debate?
Thank you for the question. It is interesting times, and to say with regards to the US and Canada relationship, we're feeling in Canada the ripple effects of every major policy shift in the United States, whether that's trade, energy, or industrial strategy. And so the volatility in the United States creates sort of a roller coaster effect for us in Canada. So one day we've got innovation and clean technology, and the next we get retrenchment or deregulation. And so when we look at Canada, we think about our own transformation, and it should not just be about technology or infrastructure. It needs people, and it needs to be stable. And so this is giving us in Canada a unique opportunity to lead by sort of navigating and charting our own course. And this course has to be grounded in fairness, sustainability, and inclusion. And the US political climate, particularly the return to fossil-based models, has driven Canada to step forward and show leadership in clean energy. And we're seeing it across the country, whether that's the federal government, support of infrastructure projects. We're building a new technology in Ontario in the small modular reactor, the first of a kind for us in Canada. Not to mention the fact that we are doing significant refurbishment investment in our hydroelectric fleet in Ontario. So it's these types of things that have really allowed Canada to take a step back from our relationship with the United States and say, what can we do? How can we lead?
And maybe a follow-up question also on the perspective on the workforce. Do you see that this uncertainty is also something that you feel on the ground in the companies, and how your colleagues respond to this environment, which is very uncertain? So do you have answers also to the colleagues? They might fear getting crushed between all this political tension.
I think that all Canadians are feeling it. And so our duty is to sort of double down and focus on the work that our people are doing. And when it comes to us as a trade union, it's about how can we support our members with their needs, right? And so we can appreciate that the society members are truly leading the transformation in energy. These are the folks that are working to create these projects and support these investments. They're not waiting for it to happen to them, they're leading it. And so what we do as a union is we've got strategies that we support the members in that work. And that's through the basics like collective bargaining, ensuring folks have training, reskilling, and equity protections. Ensuring that there is a piece for advocacy in all of this. That's Indigenous rights, sustainability, and community well-being for these major projects, because that is going to make a difference. And one important note that folks, that we value at the society is collaboration. And that's collaboration between unions, employers, and government. Because we have to do this transformation together. We cannot do it in isolation. So, but we need to make sure that as much as we appreciate it's necessary, it has to be fair for everyone. So we need to continue to call for policies that invest in people. And we cannot just have an energy future that's clean. It has to be built not only for workers, but it has to be built with these workers. That's the key.
Thank you, Rebecca. And next I would like to bring Frederik in. And Frederik, you were heavily involved in the Germany's so-called Coal Commission, which presented its recommendation about the coal phase out of Germany 8 years ago, so quite a while. And maybe you can give us some insights into where we stand today, what happened over the last years, and also what the trade union strategy is to deal with this process of structural change and how you're accompanying those processes on the ground.
Yeah, thank you for this question and hello to everybody. Maybe point because also in Germany uncertainty is rising and people are struggling. People are struggling with that climate transition. So it's important that the trade unions have a clear answer on all these challenges, and this is what we try to discuss as trade unions in Germany. Coming to the coal phase out in Germany, we had this coal commission. It consisted also out of trade unions, employer organizations, and so on. And the outcome was based on three main principles. So acceleration of the energy transition, concrete social protection measures for the workers which are affected, and also an approach of a new perspective for the affected regions with structural aid which was paid for these regions. And as trade unions, we said it is also important not only to engage in this commission, the really tough work starts afterwards. And for sure, the affiliates of the DGB, which are organizing the power stations and the mines, they are organizing the process on the company level. So one recommendation of the commission was no power plant and no mine will be shut down without a collective agreement between the employer and the trade union to make sure that the protection measures are really set and clear. And this happened. And as DGB, we are the umbrella organization of the trade unions, and we have the responsibility for the regional policy, for the structural policy. We said, okay, to support the coal regions, it is also very important that the voice of labor is very loud, is very clear in these regions, and it is necessary to support the regional trade unions, the work councils, and also the workers in this process. And this was why we built up a project. It's called Revierwende, and this project is funded by the German Ministry of Economical Affairs. And the outcome is that we build up project offices in every of these coal regions. And in these coal regions, these project offices are supporting our regional trade unions and the workers. And I think it's really important because when such a big transition comes, it is not only affecting the core of the coal, not only the miners, not only the workers in the power plants, it affects the whole region. And there are new questions. For example, when structural aid is paid to relocate new companies, to create new industrial value chains. And it's important that these new industrial jobs are also decent jobs, are organized, and trade unions have an access to these new companies. And this is what we try to support with that project, with Revierwende. So we are also consulting workers in new companies. We are consulting work councils in companies who are in this transition process so that they find a decent answer for their transition and to keep decent jobs in these regions. Maybe one figure. In the region of Lusatia, it's in the eastern part of Germany, the salary of the coal workers is around 50% higher as the average of the workers in this region. And this means that these people are really important for the regional wealth. So even in the bakery, you can feel if there is no one who has such a salary when the workplace is gone. And that's why it is so important to talk about these links. And when it comes to structural aids, when it comes to the financing of new companies, we are there, we have a clear voice, and we advocate for decent jobs in these new sectors and in these new companies.
And yeah, your thanks for those value insights. My follow-up question would be how successful the transition process have been over the recent years. So do you see any positive development in those sectors? And how is the political debate around this issue?
Well, I think it was our task as trade unions in this coal commission to make clear that this whole process is not a cakewalk. It's really, really challenging. And what we see on the ground now is that it is really challenging, although some of the people deny this 8 years ago or 6 years ago. And it is not as easy. For example, when we talk about new infrastructure, new railway connections for these regions who are not that good connected to the rest of Germany to improve also the economical development, this takes very much time. It takes too much time. And it's necessary to accelerate these things if you want to create a new economical basis in these regions. And for sure, there are some good examples. Also in Lusatia, there is a new maintenance factory implemented, built up by the German railway company. And miners from the mining company are reskilled to work in that company. So they come from a decent workplace to a decent workplace under the shelter of collective bargaining with co-determination, good union jobs. This is, for example, a good example where we have seen that this transition process was implemented well. We have other examples which are not that good. And what we also see is that this whole process takes time. And on the other hand, time is running out. So we have a clear end date for the coal in Germany. And this makes it very important to improve the energy transition on a broader scale so that we are able to shut down the coal and to replace it by renewables. But it's not that easy, but we are working on, and I think it's really important that the voice of the trade unions, of the workers, is really loud and that we play a role in that process.
Thanks, Frederik. And before I open the floor for the audience for questions, I would do a quick second round about the mood in the workforce and also how workers are also following the process, and if not so, what are the obstacles? And therefore, I would like to start with Juan. You said that you have this closing of mine before you, and I was wondering how the response on the workforce is, and how do you gain their support and their trust in this process, because it's always very hard to phase out good, decent jobs when there is no clear future. So how do you approach to the colleagues on the ground and bring them on board and convince them to follow this process?
Muchas gracias. Hiciste la pregunta clave.
Thank you very much. You have asked exactly the key question. The first mine has been closed. Is the mine of Prodeco. It's a subsidiary of Glencore. It laid off thousands of workers, leaving them in deep crisis. These workers didn't have the time to react. And at this moment, this crisis is getting worse. Why? Because of the social context of the region. The social context is extremely critical, with increase in violence, in prostitution, and other forms of violence that truly border on desperation. I hope to hear exactly the same in other regions, and I think this is true. My colleagues have the support of the government because there is a relationship between the social partners. We have achieved a tripartite conversation which has not been successful. So we are in the process of job retraining, of retraining the workers so that they can find new jobs. But the most contradictory element in this process is the worker. Why? Because the wages in the mining sector are extremely attractive. They are very competitive. So they equal maybe 3 or 4 minimum wages in the mining sector. In other sectors, there is just 1 minimum wage. So people do not want to hear about transition, about closure. They do not want to lose their jobs. It is obviously not our decision. The world is asking for closing coal mines. So it's either we have a transition process to protect the environment and climate, which ultimately is to protect the human species, or we have nothing.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. And I would like go over to Margit and also maybe to Rebecca, as we're facing a lot of strong voices from the populist side, trying to conquer the debate of transition and how trade unions should respond and how workers should respond to transition we are facing. So my question to both of you would be how you're dealing with this issue. What are your strategy to push back on those voices and to keep the workers on board?
Thank you. I think we see that it's necessary with different strategies for different levels. The green transition and climate change affects people in different sectors very differently. I think for us, it's mostly the workers in industry and oil and gas that really understand what the green transition means for them in their workplace. And the issues that they face cannot be handled just at the workplace level. There you really need industrial policy to diversify the Norwegian economy to make sure that they manage the just transition. But for a lot of workers in the rest of the economy, they don't understand what the green transition is at all for them. And so I think there the first step is to really be in dialogue with them about what is this or what will it be, and let us talk together about how to meet the challenges of the transition then. We see that the green transition is creating a lot of conflict. And I think for us it's it's really important to, in the project that we're doing, to connect both the issues of climate change with issues of the green transition, to really make it clear to our members all the different ways that climate change affects their work already today. Their access to income, their ability to get to or from work, health and safety at the workplace, as an argument to say that even though the green transition might be difficult, the only way to ensure a just and safe world of work in the future is to go through the green transition. So we cannot be against the green transition. We have to fight for a just transition. And to do that, we need to really work together. And so that's the core of how we engage, both to emphasize that without the green transition, there will not be a safe world of work in the future, and that we really have to work together, and they have to fight to ensure a just transition for their members.
Thank you, Margit. And maybe, Rebecca, you want to add something, how the situation is in Canada and how you deal with those voices and maybe also populist strategies to go into the workplace and maybe also reach out to our colleagues on the ground?
Well, there is definitely a movement in Canada, right, when it associated with the fossil fuels and a resurgence to that industry. But it's important for folks to understand how critical it is for us to go finally to that transition. And in Canada, like coal has dropped from under 18% to 4%. And 84% of Canada's electricity comes from non-emitting sources. And the public sentiment in Canada is when these plants close, there isn't a public appetite to reopen them. Our members want to live in cleaner environments. They want to live in cleaner communities. And the jobs that are created as a result of clean energy production is where our members thrive. And so it's not a hard sell to the members in our industry because this is their lifeblood. They live in these communities. They raise their children there. They go to school there. These are the critical pieces, and we need to keep having these conversations, and we need to keep bringing them to governments and labor friends. The more voices we have at the table, the better off our members will be.
Thanks, Rebecca. And before I open the floor, maybe one last question to Frederik. As we see right now, Germany is in a very critical situation when it comes to industrial production and the role model of business cases for the future. So my question would be to you, on the one hand, how the mood in the workforce and how the reactions are to it, and how the trade union response is to this issue that we are on the one side losing industrial base, but on the other side calling for modernization and the green transition.
Yeah, well, you're right. We're losing at least 10,000 industrial jobs a month in Germany in nowadays. So this is really huge, and this is really a big problem because this is not due to normal economical development. This is due to a very intensive economical crisis after the energy crisis and some other surroundings which have changed for Germany. So our vision as trade unions is that we keep a strong industrial basis because it's important for wealth, it's important for the welfare state and for social cohesion in society. And for sure there's a high level and a rising level of uncertainty in the workforce, and it's clear for us, and we want to promote this also together with the trade unionists and the companies, with the work councils, that a decent future is a green future. But this is, more or less only a nice sentence. You have to make it concrete. You have to show that it really works. And this is the problem. So we discussed for a couple of years, for example, how to transform the steel industry in Germany, how to transform the car industry. And we've seen that the political framework on the one side was not that stable not that clear. And on the other hand, too many of the employers were not that serious and invested into new technologies. And now, we have an open question how to deal with that situation. And for us, it's clear we have to follow the line of the green transition. But on the other hand, we need a concrete political framework. For example, lower energy costs. We need faster planning times, lots of issues. I cannot talk about them now, not that time for all of this stuff, but I think we have answers and it's possible, and we are still convinced that the way is right, a way of innovation, a way of new products based on a strong industrial fundament. So this is what we try to discuss with the government, with the employers, and with the workers in the companies, so that the outcome is an transition strategy which works, and this is what it is about.
Thank you, Frederik. And now I would like to open for the audience. If there are any questions, please raise your hand and you would get the microphone. Are there any? There's a question. Could you?
Hello. First, thank you for being here, for organizing the panel, and then speaking here. My question is a bit. I'm following the just transition negotiations, and what I heard inside the rooms is like that we highly profit from mutual exchange and best practice exchange. I mean, that's why you offer this panel as well. My question concretely would be how you, for example, the DGB in Germany and in Norway, in Canada now, as we hear, offer exchange platforms, how you cooperate on the international level, what's the role you play in this exchange?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I would look to the audience who would like to answer this question. Frederik was the first, and yeah, you want to go, Margit?
Okay. Well, we work with the Norwegian Trade Union Confederation. We have a lot of solidarity projects with unions from especially the Global South, with capacity building around just transition. And we see that just transition is a topic that is becoming very important everywhere. And unions in the Global South, they don't have the same resources to build capacity on these issues. So that's something we actively work on throughout the year. And then here at COP, we coordinate, the trade unions are coordinated through the ITUC, which represents trade unions from all over the world. So here we work as collective from trade unions from Global North and Global South for common objectives and positions.
Sorry.
No, everyone is awake.
Only as a short addition to what Margit said, I think as trade unions from the Global North, we have the responsibility to share our knowledge, to support trade unions from the Global South, and also to learn from each other. I mean, we do not know everything. We also need to learn a lot. And that's why it is so important to organize roundtables with trade unionists from all over the world to learn from each other. So to make it concrete, for example, when it come to when the Just Energy Transition Partnership with South Africa was implemented, we tried to talk to the South African Trade Union Confederation, COSATU. We supported them, we made contacts to our government so that they could be involved in the process. And I think this is what is valuable in such a process, to bring people together, to connect them, to help and to learn from each other.
right, so I think there was 2 more hands up. Yeah.
Hello. Oh, hi. My name is Alex Callahan. I'm the National Director of Health, Safety and Environment at the Canadian Labour Congress. Margit, you made a point that I was interested in if other folks wanted to jump in on, which was around occupational health and safety and around extreme weather and all the things that come along with that. So one of the challenges that we've had in Canada, I would say, is that people don't know what's coming next. They're being asked to basically take a leap of faith that there will be new sustainable industries, but those jobs don't necessarily exist there because our government has not necessarily consistently invested in low carbon industry. And so deindustrialization is the big fear that people have. But the other side of this is the problem they are increasingly facing is the occupational health and safety risks from a changing climate. Like you and I were talking yesterday about flooding in Norway. Well, in Canada, it's forest fires is the thing that is consistently, like, it's causing billions of dollars in damage because whole cities are being turned into ash. But that also has occupational health and safety components. And so I'm wondering if the other folks in the panel might have a moment to talk about what are the factors that are the push factors, like finding the pull factors, finding the things that people are going into is a challenge. But there are these push factors, and you were talking about the saliency of that in Norway. I'm wondering if Juan and Frederik and Rebecca might also want to talk about what are the things that are actually really pushing people out of that, because it is scary when you don't know what comes next. I hope I've asked that question in a way that's clear.
Thanks. Maybe we take another question as well, and then we answer it all together. And there was a hand over there. Or we collect 3 questions.
Sorry. I have a question for Rebecca. So you spoke about the close relationship between Canada and the US. And I was wondering, do you think, are there any, since last year, have you been intensifying your contacts with European trade unions and other like-minded partners? Are you trying to lobby for a closer cooperation with Europe? Because that's what I've been hearing, there were even these talks about Canada joining the EU or something like that, like rebranding the EU or stuff like that to disentangle maybe from the US economy.
Thanks for the question. And I would say, since due to the time, we take another question and then answering all in one, right? So maybe you could, there was, I think, sorry?
Thank you very much, comrades. I think I have 3 points to make. The first is that in relation to Germany, and I think a lot of Norway and Canada, is that the issue of funding, I don't think, is quite a hindrance to your type of transition. I've recently been to Germany on a hydrogen economy exchange held by the embassy and the government, and it was quite clear that your transition is fully funded. It's either there's money coming from the EU or the taxes themselves, and from the context of South Africa or the Global South, finance is something that we don't have a privilege of accessing in that manner. So for us, it's either loans or it's concessional funding that's really not benefiting us, and the state itself is not investing. So do you have reflections on that? I think another one is that we take for advantage how social dialogue in other parts of the world is not prerequisite. Companies, governments can do what they like, and workers are really not at the table. So what learnings can you bring to the global landscape and the global labor movement that we can benefit from the experiences you've had? And I mean, in terms of Germany, it's quite tech intensive. Are there any programs that DGB is currently thinking of so that we can have some level of technology exchange and some level of understanding of the skill sets that are currently present in the German economy throughout the transition? Thanks.
Thanks for your questions. and I would give them back to the panelists. And I would like to start maybe with Rebecca and the question on the relationships and maybe other partners that could be established in the current situation. Maybe you can say something about that. And feel free also to pick up the other questions, of course.
So, yes, the relationship is currently having its trials with the United States and Canada. And the one thing everyone, if you're not aware, can appreciate, our economies, our societies in North America are very interconnected between Canada and the United States. The society itself is affiliated with an American trade union organization. We are connected. But I think it's at a point where we can still have a relationship with the United States, but we really need to lean in to the rest of the world. They are not the only country in the world, as much as they would like to think that they are. And there's a lot of value in building relationships globally. There truly is. And there's a lot that we in Canada can learn from trade unions and their struggles, and their successes and their opportunities. And so, you know, it's unfortunate, but you're seeing a shift in Canada turning away from the United States. I will say, politically speaking, Canadians are very, very nationalistic, in a sense of which I don't think as a Canadian I've ever seen in my life. It is very much go Canada. So I hope that answers your question. But yes, we are definitely leaning into European relationships.
And yeah, if you'd like to tackle all the any other question, you feel free to. Otherwise, we are going to a short round. Maybe before hand over to Frederik, I would like to give Juan the chance to speak. Maybe also on the question of push factors. That might be an issue, and maybe also the question of social dialogue, and maybe also your possibility of access to finance. I think that's an issue maybe also for Colombia and the situation you are in.
De acuerdo. Estuvimos reunidos con la Comisión Europea.
Yes, we had a meeting with the European Commission for Latin America. Here we talked about the topic of funding. The goal was to see what kind of funding the European Union had for this energy transition. And this, more than anything, was an exchange about new processes regarding negotiations. There was a proposal for financing, and we think it's not necessarily an exchange, because we have noticed that in other parts of the world this didn't lead to good results or good outcomes. But we are still working on it, and at one point in time, for every ton of carbon that's exported, there would be a certain amount of dollars for the process, so $2 for every ton. But the multinationals like Glencore have started to reduce their production, and if that is the case, from here to sometime soon, we will not have carbon for funding for initiating the process, and that is why we are in a crucial moment. Talking about the social dialogue, we kicked off a series of working groups with the national government as well as the companies, the academia, and the communities to focus on the topic of transition. How can we focus and kick off transition? We are the trade unions, and we are organized. We have the voice, we have leadership. We can ask the national government to sit down with all the stakeholders so that there is an assertive dialogue so that a transition can be implemented, but the transition should not be imported from other parts of the world, because that would not lead to good outcomes. We have to have a transition taking place in our region. It has to be adapted and tweaked to meet the needs of the workers. Guajira is a very rich territory. We have gas, we have oil, we have salt, we have coal, and it is one of the regions that receives the highest solar radiation, and we have a lot of wind, so there is a huge potential in the region of La Guajira. We need an ambitious project of investment because we have a lot of territory. We have people throughout 43 years. We were able to have the carbon industry. We could answer to any kind of challenge that we are faced with, but we need to have the cooperation of the government, and we need to have an agreement of all of the sectors. We want to have decent work. We want the issue of transition to not lead to results like we have seen in other parts like CESAR. Here there are productive projects, but this will not happen overnight, and it has not led to the results that were envisaged. This requires time, it requires an analysis of the situation so that the outcomes can be positive.
Thanks, Juan. And before we coming to the closing remarks from Frederik, I would like give Margit short time to respond to the broad questions we got, but maybe in 2 sentences, feel free to answer what you like.
Maybe I'll just answer with Melo's question about social dialogue, because I think it's a really important point she brings up. For sure, in Norway, our tradition of social dialogue has been very, very strong for a long time, and especially in industry. But what we are seeing in the green transition and in the past few decades is that because of company restructuring, especially where multinational companies are becoming more prevalent in Norway, the social dialogue at the workplace is diminished. We also see in the green transition that almost no one of the trade union representatives are included in the development of transition strategies. They are not invited, they are not consulted, and they're not informed until it's decided. And often the transition strategies are decided centrally, often outside of the country. So the distance between the trade unionists or the trade union representatives and the decision-making authority has increased over many years. And this is something that's very difficult for us to handle and fight. Because it's about multinational or structures of multinational companies and global capital. So that's definitely a challenge that we are facing increasingly now, even if our tradition and our culture has included social dialogue for some time. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Margit. And before I hand over to Frederik for the last sentence, I would like also to say thank you to the panelists, to the various experts of Just Transition. It's very good to have this debate today. Also, thanks to the audience for the excellent questions and your patience with us. And with that said, I would like to hand over to Frederik for the closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. I think it's important that we have a clear idea of what just transition means. So what we've heard is that it's about decent working and living conditions. And that's the main focus of a just transition. So it's linked to the workforce, it's linked to workers, to the world of work. And I think when it comes to these big challenges, it's important that we remind ourselves of the power of solidarity. That is what we've heard as well. It's about collective bargaining, it's about social dialogue, it's about the strength of the trade unions to negotiate with the employers decent working conditions. And I think it's up to us to convince our governments that when it comes to public spending of private companies, that there is a link to decent working conditions. It's possible, yeah? We made some experiences in Germany spending companies when it comes to the transition, that there's a link to collective agreements in these companies. It's possible, and I think it's a leverage we have to bring the transition into the right direction. And I think there was also the question when it comes to financing in general. I mean, also in Germany, we are struggling with our public budget, and it is important for sure from the German perspective, and the trade unions are really calling for that we do not cut the development cooperation aid in Germany. So it is important to support other parts of the world in this transition process. And when our budget is running out of money, we have to discuss in Germany and all over the world about tax policy and how to tax the super rich so that they pay their fair share for a just transition. This is, I think, a very important message at the end, and everybody can promote it for the rest of the COP, as well as promoting that we need a concrete implementation of just transition in the UNFCCC process. So, also from my side, thank you very much to the panelists, to Kathrin from the German Embassy in Brazil. Thank you to our moderator, to the team from the German Pavilion, and especially special thanks to the technical staff of the German Pavilion. They did a very, very good job. Thank you so much. Good luck for everyone.
Global Mochidão, realizing just transitions. Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP30 in Billey.